With the recent release of social media and internet related horror films in the West, it got me thinking of Japanese horror films, especially from the mid 90s to the early 2000s, and moreover, the importance of J horror and what it did for the genre at a time when it was suffering in the West. Aside from the 20 years or so since the genre was at the height of its power and some of its most seminal films were released, it's easy to feel a distance from J horror at this stage because of the slew of pointless Western remakes that borrowed some of the superficial ideas from the films without any of the broader social or philosophical significance that made them so important. Many Japanese films of this period focused on behavioral shifts of characters and social spheres beneath broad social changes and developments in their culture. After World War II, Japan's rise in economic power and rapid development led to a threat of anxiety and fear of technology and progress. This quick advancement was seen as socially corrosive by some, sacrificing moral and spiritual parts of the individual, whilst also inspiring doubt in younger generations. These ideas fueled many mediums of art, especially the Japanese animation and film, none more so than the horror genre. Japan was one of the first countries to fully embrace widespread use of the internet. Its commitment to technological progress and online development brought fear that isolated individuals in a collectivist society would be further ostracized, and social progress in the country may suffer in its commitment to improvement. Although some J-horror fans during this time used the development of Japan as a backdrop to its isolated characters, others directly reference the internet as a psychological space or a medium by which malevolent influence spreads in the populace. Although it doesn't seem wholly original now to highlight the innate dangers of the internet and technological progress on us, one must put it in perspective and realize that these films came out 20 years ago at a time when Hollywood horror basically was retreading old ideas like don't babysit alone at night, knock down witches with your car, have shite friends. Unlike the binary logic of the West, these films emphasized ambiguity in their narratives and kind of sheered away from trying to force resolution like the Hollywood remakes. This made for far more interesting and intellectual pursuits and forcing viewers to conceptualize ideas long after the film had concluded. Films such as Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure emphasized the disturbing trend of alienation in Japan, as the individual's insignificance manifested itself in random acts of violence and murder. The film's inability to account for or reason with what's happening works both as a social critique and a vehicle of unease and disassociation. This horror pointed outwards to something out of our control, dissolving traditional notions of good and evil, right and wrong. Though Kurosawa's 2001 film Pulse focuses on ghosts invading the living world via the internet, it is the sense of dread in the film that sticks with us. The fractured characters seem unable to escape oblivion, or at least control their fate. Once again, Kurosawa's film points outwards to something greater, an era of social or psychological decline, beneath the backdrop of technological progress. The work of Sion Sono often looks at the fragmentation of the traditional social structures of Japan and a disillusion of identity. Both Suicide Club and Noroko's Dinner Table deal with these themes while circling the advent of the first widespread use of the internet in Japan. Younger generations leave the strict familial and social rules of their society to escape into the internet and strip away their identity and purpose for living. Similar to Kurosawa's films, Sono's work emphasizes how finely balanced the morals of society are, and the ensuing chaos of events gives way to an atmosphere of loss and eventual doom. The theme of fate as a virus or condition is very common in the Japanese horror genre, and the social connections of the World Wide Web were often seen as a vehicle to spread annihilation. Though not a direct reference to the proliferation of technology, Akira Higuchi's Spiral, based on the seinen horror manga series, also emphasizes these themes of fragmentation of identity. In this case, however, literal spiral shapes take over both the mental and physical world of small town inhabitants, and serve as a living abstraction of a broken reality. Though far quirkier in both mood and design, The themes of chaos and predetermination punctuate a disturbing atmosphere of unease in the film. That last film may have felt like a little bit of a detour, but it's important to emphasize the influence of the famous manga artist Junji Ito on the horror genre. As much as and more so than many Japanese artists, his work embodies a lot of the cultural anxiety of the country and is highly influential, and definitely something I will return to in a later video. Although having had its mythos slightly muddied by being remade in the West, Hideo Nakata's Ring is, in my opinion, one of the most important Japanese films ever. Though far simpler in its design than the films previously mentioned, it provides the purest link between the traditions of Japanese supernatural horror and the existential dread of modernity. The rather plain narrative of The Ring and similarly constructed films made them attractive to remake and adapt in the West. However, these remakes often lack the broader ideas and implications. Whereas Gore Verbinski's The Ring is technically a sound film, it doesn't have any of the weight and depth of the original. Hollywood identifies with the technical success and thus profit. And so began a trend of bland features and copies of Japanese horror sacrificing their most important elements. I'm not saying that there haven't been a lot of really great films made in the West addressing the fears and anxieties of technology and progress. However, recently there's been a lot of terrible films that, more so than the remakes of J-horror, seem a giant step backwards for the horror genre in the West. Although I've painted a fairly bleak picture of modern horror in the West, I think this has been more of an attempt to highlight the importance of J-horror and disassociate it with the homage that Hollywood has seemingly paid by remaking the best of Japanese works. Maybe someday soon we will see decent horror films in the West that address some of the very real issues and anxieties associated with the internet and media culture. But until then, I recommend that you check out some of the films I've talked about or work by the directors I've just spoken about.